of Nkrumahism. You mean the name or term given to the consistent ideological policies followed and taught by Kwame Nkrumah. These are contained in his speeches, in his theoretical writings and stated ideas and principles. You also mean that Nkrumahism, in order to be Nkrumahist, must be related to scientific socialism. The philosophy that must stand behind this social revolution is that which I have once referred to as philosophical conscientism. Conscientism is the mapping intellectual terms of the disposition of forces which will enable the African society to digest the Western and the Islamic and the Christian elements in Africa and develop them in such a way that they fit into the African personality.
Pan-Africanism. I am Pan-Africanism. I call for the total liberation and unification of the African continent. I stand for one socialist government for Africa. I am Pan-African. I represent the hopes of African people. Once Africans achieve me, neocolonialism is eliminated, imperialism will bow in shame, and the African fame will never fade. I am Pan-Africanism. I am coming, whether you like it or not, and raise the African banner. I will put a stop to the poverty, cruelty, and vulnerability. I am Pan-Africanism. I call upon you, the youth, to learn for your people. I call upon you, the workers, to organize for freedom. I call upon you, the leaders, to wake up from your sleep, your laziness, your selfishness, and join hands with me to make Africa free. I am Pan-Africanism. Thank you.
Akwaba, welcome to the People's School for Positive Education. Why positive education? We know that, as all things, education is dialectical. It can be negative or positive, depending on the conditions. And since Africa is under neocolonialism, being dominated by foreign imperialist powers, it's necessary, in order to have education that's relevant, that education must be positive. It must be geared towards the liberation of our continent. It must be geared towards the controlling of our resources with scientific socialism. It must be geared towards a continental government where Africans are able to politically make decisions that are enforced throughout the length and breadth of our territory. And those decisions are adhered to by all within our territory. And so this is why we specifically selected positive education, which is an application of Kwame Nkrumah's positive action in order to liberate and unify our continent, Africa.
Africa must unite. The great millions of Africa and of Asia have grown impatient of being livers of wood and drawers of water, and are rebelling against the false belief that Providence created some to be menials of others. Kwame Nkrumah, Africa Must Unite, Phase 6, Class 10. Read a quote.
Africa must unite. The great millions of Africa and of Asia have grown impatient of being livers of food and drawers of water, and are rebelling against the false belief that Providence created some to be menials of others. Kwame Nkrumah.
and woman God created were what? Africans. They were Africans. Yes, what are some propaganda? Yes, a joke.
They said Jesus Christ is white, but Satan is black. So they mean that we are black, so we are Satans.
So they paint Jesus Christ as white and Satan as black. When you look at your complexion, then you would think you resemble what? Satan. And this would diminish your dignity and what? Integrity. Who else? Yes, I can't wait.
They are saying Africans are naked, meaning animals.
They say we are Negroes, niggas, we are animals. Thank you. Yes, Rafa.
Madam, civilization was brought by we the Africans, but the Europeans are saying that it was brought by them.
Good. The Africans were the first people to start civilization. When you trace our history to Egypt, this is the place where the first university was created. This is the place where Africans began to read and write. They created the calendar, but the white man will tell you that Africans were not civilized. It was them who brought what? Civilization. These are all false propagandas. The African must be proud to be an African.
We selected Kwame Nkrumah's philosophy because philosophy is the highest level of thinking. And if you look in the university, at the university philosophers, Kant, Berkeley, Schopenhauer, Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, Marx, all the philosophers are Europeans, and their philosophies are derived from the experience and consciousness and the material conditions of Europeans. And so we are not Europeans, we are Africans. And so it's necessary for us to have an independent African philosophy. So our highest level of thinking about the universe, regarding what exists in the universe and the nature of mankind, should be independently African. And Kwame Nkrumah was able to create such a philosophy, which is philosophical conscientism. And with this philosophy, we're able to establish independent African thinking at the highest level, in the highest position of the minds of our students. And this philosophy will guide our thinking so we can envision an Africa that is liberated, an Africa that is free, an Africa that is industrialized and representing the interest of African people inside of Africa and throughout the world as dominant, and developing the potentiality of the masses of our people to the highest level.
There is a path of redemption, and I consciously suggest Nkrumahism, an independent ideology derived from the African culture and experience. Nkrumah stated in Conscientism, page 105, under the searchlight of an ideology, every fact affecting the life of a people can be assessed and judged.
In order for Africa to ensure the development of principled, brave, honorable, die-hard, revolutionary, selfless, and dedicated leaders and citizens for Africa, an independent African ideology is of the utmost importance. On a further note, in order for us to digest and analyze all that I have said, it is very crucial to understand that education is an ideal aspect towards the achievement of Africa and African liberation. And not just any form of education, but the form that seeks to broaden the knowledge in a very positive manner, as well as serve as a guide against misfortune and brainwashing.
Our fathers of 20th century had used Nkrumahism, and it worked for them. So why don't we pick it up again and use it against neocolonialism in this 21st century? If Africa's liberation was to be a locked door, then Nkrumahism would be the key to unlock our liberation.
Today's educational policies, like the free compulsory universal basic education, establishment of community schools, the school feeding program, and what have you, are not stemming from anywhere but from the ideologies that were championed by Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. It is therefore imperative that these things are mentioned so that we know where we are coming from in order to know where we are heading towards. People's School, I must say, is actually championing this idea, enabling our children or graduates to have liberty in their minds, to choose, to become what would make them future leaders of the country. It is this reason that I would say if you have your child in the school, then you are not at a wrong place. You have brought them to where their minds will be liberated so that they can carry their visions to whatever extent.
First of all, we have been able to successfully operate a high level of instruction for 10 years without charging school fees. This has given students who are from the working masses the opportunity to receive a quality of education that without this opportunity they may not have had access to. Most likely they wouldn't have had access to such a quality of education. And secondly, we've been able to successfully pass the basic education certificate examination over 6 years with 100% success rate. Every single BECE candidate that People's School for Positive Education has sent to take the BECE examination has passed and qualified for senior high school. This is under a condition in which 43%, according to the public relations representative for the GES, about an average of 43% of students have passed the BECE examination. And we've passed with 100%. So we have 89 students who have been able to pass the BECE examination and qualify for senior high school education.
We believe in the ideas of Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, as the school also believe in. We know Dr. Kwame Nkrumah is the first president of Ghana, and then he's one of the greatest leaders of Africa. And so as a PTA, we accepted and then believe in the ideas. We want our children to grow up and be like Dr. Kwame Nkrumah.
Nkrumahism as an ideology, I know, is independent, and it seeks to achieve socialism and Pan-Africanism in Africa. And that's the main objective and the destiny of the African people. Once we are united and once we are under a socialist economy, then it means our problems are solved. Nkrumahism emanates from the ideas of our own religious experiences, and this is synthesized in the ideology to help us and liberate us. Nkrumahism is revolutionary, and Nkrumahism is meant to revolute and change the ideas, the primitive and archaic ideas that colonialism and neocolonialism is pushing in Africa. And so I think Nkrumahism is the ideology that every African must have, to be independent in thoughts, to be proud of himself as an African, and to see to it that Africa is united and free from Western imperialism.
Nkrumah said imperialism is our enemy because the imperialists have an elitist and capitalist ideology. It is important for African youth to be educated with an independent ideology because as a people we must have an independent ideology, and we the youth are the future leaders of Africa. So it is very important that we must have our independent way of thinking to guide us in our leadership positions. They exploited Africans, used us as slaves for hundreds of years, and now the final stage is neocolonialism, which is indirectly using our puppet leaders to exploit we Ghanaians. They have continued to exploit Africans for centuries and centuries, and they do not care of making Africans suffer just to gain more wealth and property.
We are calling for support for a revolution in Africa. A revolution that is going to provide water, that's going to provide food, education, healthcare, housing. A revolution that is going to industrialize Africa. A revolution that is going to establish a continental government and central planning for our continent. A revolution that's going to eliminate neocolonialism from Africa and throw white supremacy in the dustbin. Those who are willing to support this revolution, we urge you to make contributions.
Sanya kumefe mwa hiwote. Ni wanibi papa ni dofo cheme hehe ya wadie. Ni wani ni anye sheno. Ko nyami nkongo sanya onyo yobuale. Nenye yenye. Esa no bulale ke bash.
Socialism is the best economic system for Africans when we are united under one continental government. Socialism seeks to provide free education, good health, and potable drinking water. It brings the masses of the people interest first, rather than the interest of the bourgeois class. I can justify socialism using egalitarianism as its principles, which see human beings as equal.
Help us to make Africa a beacon for world peace and world civilization. Those who are outside of Africa, we're also calling on you to support us to wage this revolution, because the current status quo is intolerable. African students are selling pure water on the street. African women are unable to take their babies from the hospital because of inability to pay hospital bills. Our people do not have access to clean drinking water. Our resources are being controlled by foreign capitalist interest. So this revolution support is needed from all who wish Africa well.